Okay. Well, here we are, mentoring Q&A. All right, go for it, Tom.
So the first thing I want to say is there is a prerequisite for this program, and we've never done that before. Um, and but there is one. Here it is, right? And it doesn't mean anything except that you might have to wait a year to be in the program. Um, or you might decide that you don't even want to do it the way we're choosing to do it. But there is, in order to be a mentor and to be in the program, which we're going to get into what that actually means. You have to have that prerequisite of a certificate of completion. And I just want to put that right here, right now, in case you don't have one and you're like, well, I didn't know that, so forget it. I'm out of here. I don't want to use up too much of your time. But if you understand that, and even if you don't have what we call a COC or a CCO COC, then that's fine. If you want to hang out and learn about it anyway, wonderful. I mean, you got to start somewhere. So I just wanted to just say that right away, that's the one thing that's kind of could become, a bit of a difficulty if you don't have that done right now.
And maybe the why. uh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, we just decided we wanted to be a pain in the butt. Uh, Actually, no. That's very. Thank you, Antonio, for reminding me. Or I mean, do you want to speak to
I mean,
that,
I
or?
think like it's well, yeah, as you can imagine, Tom and I will riff off of each other here. Um, but I think like one of the things that right off the bat, it's like, you don't need a certificate of completion if you're doing an organizer facilitator group. But we're asking for it for this. And what's the difference, and why would we ask it for one and not the other? So the first thing that to throw out there is when we say organize a facilitator, some people, as a matter of fact, have just organized a group just to come together, just to help people organize and just to help gather people, if you will. So they're not even necessarily even facilitating. They're just there to gather people. And, I mean, I know that I've heard of different scenarios where a person from the group will lead that group session. So some people just organize a group. Then you have the aspect of facilitating, which is merely right. And the idea of facilitating really is to really help bring people through the exercises and to facilitate that group on a weekly basis, as opposed to sharing that position of leadership, if you will. And so the thing there is that the organizer facilitator, in whatever aspect that they're doing, they have a lot of they have the course to back them up, because what we're asking for in the organizer facilitator track is that every week the sessions that you host, your practice group sessions, are based on that week's session. And so that's one of the things that gives you a little bit more of a grounding when you're doing organizer facilitator track, is that the course and the group in a way is there to back you up. You're
Yeah.
not on a one-to-one personal level there. That's the
Right. And if I
first
could
thing.
just, yeah, and just to
Yeah.
riff off that, right? So as a facilitator, you have, let's say, 5 or 6 or 7 other people in the space with you to help you, right? To help you through the process of organizing and facilitating the group. We're all together. And by the way, we do ask that if you're going to be an organizer facilitator, that you have at least somewhat done, that you've done the course already. But that, and the reason we ask that, not in this kind of very kind of challenging way that we do in the COC, but just know what you've done, know what you're signing up for, right? In other words, let's just make sure you understand and you know what it's like to do something for a year, and that that that's what you're committing to if you're doing this. If you're gonna, so that's why we ask that for an organizer facilitator. You've done the course, not again, not with the level of intensity that the certificate of completion requires. So the reason we want, which again speaks to why would we want to change that? Well, when it's just one-on-one, you don't have the group there to regulate. You don't have the group there to contribute, right? To help you, to support you. And it's just, there's more, uh, the mentor has a greater influence, right? Because it's just the one-on-one. And so we really want to make sure that people understand the work. And the way we've done that was through the certificate of completion, which if you do everything in that certificate of completion, you can't help it. You will know the work. You, you just probably, if you did all those exercises, completed all those exercises in that order, I don't know how you'd not be able, not have needs awareness is what I call it, really, just like really well developed needs awareness, and to the point where you can really riff off of it and function with it and, make decisions with it and do all sorts of things. And well, most importantly, help people through the process that you've been through, which we'll talk about what that actually looks like from a little more scientific level later. So yeah, and the other thing is we want the course to be democratic. We want people out there, we want it to be a community, not just this thing you buy from, the New York Center Nonviolent Communication. We really want this to be like a whole thing, and it is right now. We've kind of done that, and we want to make sure if we're gonna expand like that, that it doesn't just go all different ways once that happens. So that's why we have the monthly meetings and the program, actual program, so that we are all together in this. There is a mentoring community that's a resource for you. And we're going to meet together every month to talk about what it means to be a mentor, things that really help you be a mentor, or to troubleshoot something that's happening, pitfalls that, as I like to say, I can save you years of grief, in a half an hour. So that's why we have it, so that we know that there's a certain level of quality assurance really in the community, without getting too into analyzing. That's the thing, that like the certificate of completion is an observation, and that is totally in alignment with what we're looking to do. So
just to talk about real quick the certificate of completion, the Q&A session for the certificate of completion is on the Compassion Course website. I put the link in the chat, and that's where you'll find more information about that also. So there's that. I know I see Ruthie's hand, so maybe do you have something real quick, Ruthie?
Yeah, very quickly. I'm curious in terms of the timeline, because I know that you opened up the registration for the Compassion course for next year, yet I'm not exactly sure of the date, the last date for submissions of everything from the certificate of completion, and then like how does it all work in terms of the timing? Like when do you, because I'm doing all the work at home, and then I'm going to submit everything at once. So
as soon as you hit the 90% mark, you can submit, by the way.
So
the 90% mark would be which chapter?
I believe that's 48.
So as soon as I did chapter 48 with everything, and then I'll go through it again and look it over, and then we could submit it, and then we can register.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Now the other thing, correct? Yes. The other thing, of course, if you're anticipating receiving a certificate of completion because you've kept up with the work, you can register ahead of time. What we're going to do, as you can imagine, this is for everyone. First thing, if you are expecting a certificate of completion because you're going to complete your work, we're going to start verifying work. The first round of verification is going to happen, I believe, May 26th, around there is when week 48 hits. So that's when we're going to start issuing that first wave of certificate of completions. And then every week after that, we're going to keep on verifying all the work that comes in and checking that off. So
Right.
if you're anticipating receiving a certificate of completion because you're going to do 90% of the work, you can register ahead of time now. And like I was saying, we're going to cross-reference to make sure that if somebody signed up for mentorship, we're going to make sure that, the last date to complete your work is July 23rd, I think, or something like that. It's in the email. And so you can still, for example, you can register now. And when you have completed your certificate of completion, you're all set to, for example, list yourself in the database in the directory for mentors.
And just as a matter of fact, you don't necessarily have to start your mentoring practice with the course. You could start it a month, 2 months, 3 months after the course begins. And same for practice groups too, by the way. That's one of the, a lot of folks are like, why do you only do it once a year? And it's because, well, when you do it once a year, anybody, it's inside the community can hop in and out, right? It has a lot of range of motion inside the community in terms of choices, yet, right, we're all doing the same work. So it's really, to me, it's a great advantage of this, that you can do what you do when you need to. You don't have to, again, the practice groups and the mentoring, they start whenever they start.
Thank you.
Cool. So maybe we'll jump into some PowerPoints here.
Yeah.
And I'll give you like a little idea of what we're talking about here. So here's where we just left off here. Let me bring up my PowerPoint. So we left off here talking about what the program is about. Maybe I'll bring this up to a, let's see here, review. Let's go to slideshow. There we are. So this is where we're at right now. We talked about the mentoring program. This is, again, designed to connect participants in the Compassion course with other people who have completed the course and are interested in supporting participants in the course. Again, we talked about that prerequisite of having a certificate of completion in order to become a mentor. And what this does is that it agrees to respect the sequence and content of the course. We'll talk more about the sequence part also in a moment. And participants can find mentors on our mentor directory anytime during the course. Let's moving on here. So how does it work? So we do have a mentors conference. So if you're in the mentoring program, we have a mentoring program conference. It's going to happen. We did this Q&A session intentionally on this day because it's going to happen every first Monday of every month. And that's where for an hour and a half, we'll talk about different things, skill building, troubleshooting. We'll take questions, we'll do Q&A, and situational support, scenarios, role plays, what happens when you're working with someone who, this is probably a good time to address certain things like, somebody comes to you and they're like, I'm here because I want to work on this really, really huge thing. It's with my partner and we're having arguments and fights every day, and I need the course to save me. So
we're getting divorced. We have a divorce on the calendar for the end of the month. And I think I can use this course to fix this thing, which they can, but not in a month. And so that's part of our job as mentors, right? Is to help people understand what they don't know yet, to know what they don't know, or what they don't know, to be particular.
Yeah, I think on that note, sometimes, and I can probably say for myself, I've probably had this happen for me. I've wanted to jump ahead when we're on week 4 and we're talking about translating judgments. I've been so tempted to want to jump ahead and talk about boundaries
Or
and
anger, right?
or anger. And I think it goes back to kind of like what Thom was saying, people don't know what they don't know. And so we're here to bring them to know like fundamentals. Sometimes Thom and I were just talking about this. Sometimes some people's biggest struggles are that the fundamental ideas of being able to translate judgments, of being able to feel their feelings, connect to needs, embody needs, right? And to have that level of integration. And those first few chapters, especially from 1 through 10, like that's like sometimes those are critical aspects that could be missed as someone is struggling. And so as a mentor, people might want to move ahead really far. And you might also be tempted to want to move someone really far ahead. This is where, regulation and self-regulation becomes super important to really know that, sometimes the most important stuff is the first stuff. And that basic fundamental stuff is so critical to sometimes go back and review.
Yeah. Well, and we have a little thing. I don't know if it's the next slide.
It's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up.
After doing this for a few years, I've been able to recognize no matter what language we were, no matter what country we were in, no matter what age we were, all of us humans seem to go through the same kind of incremental growth pattern when we learn what I call needs awareness, right? AKA nonviolent communication. And as mentors, it's awesome to have that framework to refer to, because sometimes it's like really hard to figure out, I don't know, what does this person need? Like, what do they need to have their breakthrough right now? What's missing? And that's a pretty big responsibility in a way, right? And so we have a way to actually look at that, which is super helpful. And again, we've got these meetings on a regular basis. And we have a community that's out there also as a tremendous means of support. So all that theoretically is like going to create this really, really cool mentoring program.
Yeah. So in terms of the agreement of what the course is agreeing to provide the mentors with, we are once again creating a private Telegram group that's just for people who are in the mentoring program. So if you are a mentor, you will be able to talk with other mentors. I found it to be, and I've looked in there, and I do still think that it's a great resource to get some more support, to provide support, to ask questions. And so you have access to the Telegram group. We, of course, are going to create the mentor directory as well. Just as a heads up, we are working on, of course, improving all the technology of the directory that we have for practice groups and for mentors. But we do have a mentor directory still. So we're going to be using, for now, the same technology that we've been using, always looking for something better. And we have a mentors resource page. That's where you can go to get, you'll have access to, for example, on the mentors resource page, you'll have access to all the future weeks that are coming up also, in case you want to get ready and read ahead of time. Conference follow-up emails, as you've seen before, if you are in the OF track, or even if you're a regular participant, we've been sending follow-up emails, and that's where you can review the conference recording, and any handouts, resources that we talked about will be in there as well. This agreement, I know that it's small. I'll try and see if I can zoom in a little bit, and I'll go through it one at a time and I'll read it. So this is the agreement when you sign up to be a Compassion Course mentor. The mentor agrees to have previously completed the Compassion Course and the Certificate of Completion. I think we already reviewed that. The second thing, mentor agrees to mentor people currently registered in the course. And this again talks about, right, what we're talking about here, that when we resell the course on our own, meaning when we teach this to people who are not in the course and who are not registered in the course, it really can impact the person who you're mentoring, because they really are not going to be able to take part in the forum and the conferences. And so it really could impact their integration in the course and their participation. So that's what number 2 talks about there. Number 3, we agree that it's okay to charge for mentoring people in the course. So in terms of like, and as we say here, we're happy to see people get some energy exchange for their work, such as a fee or a donation. What people are happy to pay and agree varies widely from pro bono, right, free, to a range of 30 to over 100, maybe even 150 per session. Sessions can go from 30 minutes to an hour and typically happen 2 to 4 times a month. Other agreements are possible as well. And we finished off by saying whatever works.
Favorite 2 words.
Yep, exactly. So in terms of the range of price and how often you meet, we're going to talk about that. We have a typical agreement scenario in another slide coming up, but that's something that you will be the judge of for yourself, of what works for you and what works with the person who you are mentoring. And sometimes agreements can vary from participant to participant. I really like to stick to the last 2 words there of whatever works. This is something that, again, I imagine all the communication skills that we've been working on here are going to help to answer that question. So next up, we got mentor agrees to discuss and practice the work of the Compassion Course. This is important. Mentoring is different than training, or even, we'll talk about it, counseling, where you take responsibility for the curriculum and content. In the Compassion Course, that's done through the weekly messages and conferences. And the purpose of mentoring sessions is to clarify and practice the content and exercises and help apply to the mentee's own life. So that kind of just talks about what we're trying to stick to here is the content of the course. Now, yes, you might, and I know that there are people who are very well versed and trained in other practices and modalities. The thing about it is that I think when we blend that work with the Compassion Course work, it really might impact that participant's ability to actually really delve and embody the work of the course. And so it doesn't take away from what your other modalities are. It just, what could happen is the impact on the participant's experience in the course. And that's what that bullet point talks about there, of if we stick to the course and the course material, and look, if there's questions about course material of like, I think I can integrate this with this other modality. I mean, I would really invite that more as a discussion when we get onto the conferences. Because again, the concern here is maybe veering people away from the course, where people are like, well, I understand needs more when we're talking about breath work. But that could really take away from just being able to talk about and have questions, have concerns about just a course, about needs, about feelings. And the more that we can ask questions as a participant about those things to our mentors, the more that we're going to maybe be able to integrate it. I think one of the things as a mentor that helps is, I have found this, when you can explain the same concept in 3 to 5 different ways, like, right, instead of maybe veering off the track and saying, let's talk about breath work because it might help with needs, I might want to go ahead and figure out for myself, how can I explain this concept in different ways where I'm still trying to get the point across of what needs are.
Yeah, if I could just speak to that, one of the things that I've seen happen over the years is that, especially when we're delving into something kind of on the new side, is that we want to tap into what we already know. It feels comfortable. And and I've seen it over and over again. And it's not that it's not, like Antonia said, it's not like we don't think it's a valid thing. It's just that we're in a specific time frame, we're a specific schedule and sequence, and it's really, the course is designed to be, its own thing, not necessarily to be combined with other things. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying we don't do that inside the course. And, hey, life is life. We do whatever we want. But this idea of even agreements, right, that we're talking about now, what that does is it creates a single thing, a single community, a single set of experience. And we're finding that that's incredibly powerful. And so we don't want to lose that. It's what helps the community grow, really, is to really leave a trail of really, really skilled folks uh, everywhere. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And this is how we can do it with agreements
Yeah.
and a consistent content curriculum.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Let's see. Okay. The next point, number six, mentor agrees to attend or review the recording of the monthly mentoring meeting, the conferences that we're talking about, which happen every first Monday of the month at 12 p.m. Eastern time. These meetings are a forum to discuss our challenges and refine our mentoring practice. And mentoring meetings are a place where you can cross-pollinate with your colleagues, learn how to better support your mentees, and troubleshoot issues. I imagine we probably talked about that, and hopefully that's pretty clear. So if you have any questions again about any of this, we'll probably pause at some point and take some questions. The final few here, mentor agrees. Number 7, mentor agrees that they are there to assist the mentees in understanding and integrating the work of the Compassion Course. Mentor agrees they are not there to provide therapy and will refrain from counseling or advising regarding personal matters. This one again, I can write as a mentor, we can provide our own personal 2 cents as to what I would do in this instance. That's what we're talking about of
But yeah,
right.
but surrounded, Marshall used to say, I'll give you advice, but you have to ask for it in writing, in triplicate, notarized. And you have to promise not to sue me afterwards. And so I think we all kind of get his point, and that is a lot of folks would love for us to give them advice. And to me, the answer is I will not tell you what to do. I'll tell you how to figure out what to do, but I will not tell you what to do. And that's our work, right? I'll teach you how to self-empathize. I'll teach you how to see your needs. I'll teach you how to embody them. And that's what we do. And the thing is, it might sound a little boring, but we're always going back to the course, always going back to the course. And so, yeah, we're just asking that we, pay attention to that process.
Yeah. All right. So last 3, number 8, mentor agrees to attend. And I think we also changed this, by the way, attend or listen to the recordings of the live trainings, Empathy 101 or Working with Anger. So that's, I think, been updated on the agreement when you get to the registration form. Number 9, the course agrees to provide 24/7 connection to the Compassion Course mentoring community via our private Telegram group. And again, this is from what we've seen with the organizer facilitators. We understand the importance of this group as a source of wisdom and support. And the last one is what we agree to provide, which is a resource page with exercises, agreements, conference recordings, and helpful course links. Now, there's one other point that is not on here, and it is on the actual registration form. So I might I'll share it with you, the registration form agreement, because one of the most critical and important points on here that is on the registration form is that the mentor agrees to give access to their mentee to the feedback form. So we are going to have a feedback form, and I'll pull that agreement up actually so that we have more clarity as to what we're talking about. So there is going to be a feedback form that you give to your participant who you're mentoring. Now, the reason for that is, it's interesting because in a practice group, it's a similar scenario where you have the support of the community there, but when it's a one-to-one session, it's kind of like we also just really want to kind of like get an idea of what's going on out there. We have received emails, and I loved hearing the feedback that people were giving organizer facilitators. They were emailing us testimonials. I took this person's practice group and it really changed my life. And so that's, again, the big reason why we're asking to give this feedback form is just so that we also just have an idea of what's going on out there. We didn't know how the practice groups were going. We were receiving emails from people saying this was great, or sometimes questions as to like, is this what the practice group is for? And that's the same thing that we're doing with this mentoring feedback form. So again, one of the bullet points in the agreement is that you're going to give your participant that link to the feedback form so that they have access to it, basically.
Right. And this all speaks to this idea, excuse me, of like a certain level of quality assurance that we're trying to provide, right? We want to be able to have complete loops of communication. And so if, you can imagine all these different little circles, theoretically, we'll all be functioning together.
So that covers that. I actually just looked at the agreement, and everything that we talked about is on there, and that was the only one. So
cool.
All right. So here's the big one. Hence the name of this slide. Let me bring this one up. A big picture of mentoring. I think we wanted to get to this one earlier. So this is what we're trying to really get through with mentoring. It's these 5 bullet points here, guiding people through this integration process. The integration process of being able to understand, right? Like first one, to understand that needs and feelings exist and what they are. That one, it's funny because I have been to workshops, NVC workshops, where we go over that first bullet point and we only talk about it for like 10 minutes and then we move on. But that one is what we talk about in the course for an entire year. And if you've been here before, you might be able to speak to how much of a challenge that is, of being able to understand needs and feelings. And especially sometimes when we're in the heat of the moment, or when we're depressed, when we're just not feeling it, and how hard it might be to actually connect to those energies.
Yeah. So that's actually, is our, if I pick it up on this?
Go for it. Yeah.
So if we're looking at this as like I said, a kind of an incremental progression, the very first one is, right, you would need to know, for example, if you were going to go to New York, you'd need to know that New York exists. And so oddly enough, that's like our first job, is to help people understand that this exists. And when we say this, what do we mean? Well, we're talking about this idea of needs awareness, that there's this thing called universal human needs, and there are these things called feelings, and they're real, they exist, and that there's work that's based on this. And so the next part of that is to be able to recognize, and by the way, most of you might recognize this in yourselves, to be able to recognize and articulate those things. Like, so first we know they exist, and then we go like, wow, I have them. I have feelings, I have needs, and so does everybody around me. Wow, didn't see that before, right? So I call that like kind of stepping into that parallel universe of being able to see the energy of needs in the world, in yourself, in other people. And then comes the next part, which I think is often the hardest part for us in terms of the whole process of integration, is our relationship with those things, my relationship with feelings, what I think, my beliefs, what I think and believe about needs, what I think and believe about feelings. All these, I have like this whole setup. We all do. We have this relationship with them, and we're changing that relationship inside the course, right? We're taking feelings from being something we shouldn't have, or something that's bad news, and turning them into guidance. We're taking needs which, used to be considered, being selfish or being weak, and we're turning them into something that you could actually make your life more wonderful with. And in fact, we discover that that is, in fact, the essence of life. And so all this happens in a certain order, in a way. And so after we're working with that relationship, now we're in this place. And this is where Antonio was saying this is really about week 10 or so. For the first time, I can start thinking in terms of empathy. I can start thinking in terms of an empathic dialogue, even. So, because I can see my own feelings and needs, and I can see somebody else's. And now we can start to use that in like a real process, right? And then ultimately we live in that space of dialogues. And what that does is it starts to, as I said here, inform all our relationships. And in fact, even our relationship to life itself. And so I've seen it over and over again, and maybe you recognize this in yourself, and you could even say where you are. And by the way, I'm not like, this doesn't mean you check, 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 I'm done. These are things that we all work on, right, for the rest of our lives. Just like a tennis player or a golfer would always have to work on their stroke for their whole lives, right? And so some of these things are that, going back to the basics. But as a mentor, it's really cool because we can go look and like with with these ideas, these concepts in mind, and really help somebody. Because like we go, oh, it sounds like, or I'm wondering if you're getting enough empathy in your life right now, right? Because a lot of times, like people they'll mentally understand these processes, but if they don't participate, they're going to start saying, I did that exercise, but it didn't work. And so like, we're like, oh my goodness, why didn't it work? Well, we can go back and look at this and go, oh, sounds like you didn't actually get what we would hope to get from the empathy process itself. Do you have an empathy buddy? And away we go, right? So this is how we can really help people. And again, this is just a way of getting a big picture, which I find incredibly helpful. And then look, we've got a whole community here also. They go, well, I'm pretty sure this is a problem. I just don't know what to do with it. And then, maybe we would prescribe an exercise or a game or practice in the meeting. So like that.
Cool. All right. So I think that covers, I think that covers that, I think.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. So here we go. Moving on to what, a very, tangible idea here. What does the typical mentoring session look like? Here's an outline of what maybe a mentoring session of yours could look like. You want to start with check-ins. That's, everything that we do here, our staff meetings, our conferences, the Q&As,
True.
when the phone company calls us, when the electric company calls, no, I wish.
That's, I think, the only time we don't do a check-in.
It's the only time.
Yeah, Central Hudson calls us. So should we start with a check-in? I'll have to try that one day.
Yeah. So it's a really great place to start. And the reason I say that is because you might also get information as to like where to go in the session from the check-in that you hear. That happens often in our check-ins as a staff meeting. And when I do a check-in with a mentoring client, it really does give me direction. It gives me information. And it really does, more than even demonstrate it, it really does help integrate with the idea of feelings and needs. Because as the person is maybe doing their check-in, maybe they'll start noticing what's really going on for them. They'll start connecting to their feelings, to the needs that are going on for them. Could be a place also, as we mentioned here, for celebrations and mournings, right? This maybe has to do with their practice or anything going on in life, anything that they're celebrating or mourning, things that are going well, things that are not going so well.
And by the way, as mentors, this one thing of check-ins and celebrations and mournings is incredibly informative. It really is, because it's not going to be the same throughout anybody's life or throughout the course. It changes. Like, you can see it at first, it's going to be, well, I feel this and I feel that, and I need this and I need that. And then all of a sudden you can hear there's like a more of a connection to what they're saying. Or my favorite one is when somebody says, wow, I feel all sorts of things right now. I'm like, yes, strike one, or not score one, rather, right? It's like, exactly. That's what's happening when you become aware of yourself. And so just that check-in session can tell us a lot. Maybe they're afraid to talk about feelings and needs. Maybe they don't like to use those words, and they'll try to have like a more traditional conversation with you, and talk about things that happened instead of how they are. Another really important thing to catch on to, right? Wow, okay, so it's not something that's really coming to them as naturally as could be. So there it is. There's something to work on.
Yeah.
It's like that.
And when you move on to the second check-in, this is where you can check in to see what's going on for the person, review how the Compassion Course week went for them, if they have any questions about that, to see if they want to work on something from the current week that relates to their life. Can include questions, concerns, confusions about course content, things that they want more clarity about. When we start talking about this third point, practice at least one of the CCO exercises. I mean, maybe you get to that point. One of the things that I think is important is having clarity with the participant that you're there to help guide them through the course. It's different than being, for example, their empathy buddy. If that's the agreement that you want to create, that's different than being in a mentoring session, which could still work, right? It goes back to those two words of whatever works. But at the beginning, and what we have told people that the mentoring program is about, it's on the website, it gives people the opportunity to get through the course with support from someone. But it's still going to be important, by the way, even when we get to this other point of suggesting homework, like finding an empathy buddy and helping them, seeing if you can support them in some way, shape, or form to build a sustainable and a very long-lasting empathy relationship, because that's going to be like that will turn the corner for them.
There's a temptation to just be there, and it happens. It can happen, pretty easily, and that is that as a mentor, you become their source of empathy, and giving somebody empathy is wonderful, but setting them up with a empathy practice in their lives changes everything, and then that puts you back in the mentor seat. And so now, instead of just being that one part of their practice, that one part of the practice is part of this bigger picture that you can help the person with, in all these aspects.
Yeah, the other aspects of suggesting homework could include things that have to do with that current week that you reviewed that also relates to that person's life. For example, it could be noticing judgments and being able to write them out, especially if you're talking about judgment weeks. It could be when you're working about, when you get to really big stuff like anger, noticing feelings, being able to pick up on judgment thoughts that are going on when you're having anger. What beliefs do you have about hearing no, about saying no, things like that. So it kind of like extends the homework that's already there to maybe help bring a little bit more awareness. And you're kind of like helping point them in that direction of like, let's look for more judgment thoughts. Let's look for more like awareness of when you're feeling anger, what's going on there. So you're kind of like just you're steering them back towards like, let's dig more into that idea there.
And usually, by the way, if you're suggesting, which I'm hoping a lot of us do a lot of, which is sending people back to the basics. like to and you know, if you look throughout the course, there's all these weekly references, you know, to the other weeks that are important about that course. Use those, and most of the time, it's not about going to a concept you haven't learned yet. It's about going. It's about learning a concept that's already been done before and getting it really, you know, circling back and making sure it's part of our foundational education. And again, something that is wonderful that a mentor can do for people.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the last point here of checkouts, what did they get from the session? What could have possibly worked better? Doesn't necessarily have to do, right? This doesn't necessarily have to do with you and how, you know, you showed up, but it could be, you know, what's going on for them, what happened for them during the session. What, you know, what could have worked better for them, and questions like that. These are just examples of what checkouts are. Just
Yeah.
could be feelings and needs checkouts.
I was
But
just going to say, sometimes it's just like, let's just take a moment of silence and
yep.
just do a, you know, kind of a, just the way you kind of check in, you can just kind of bow out as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. And here's what maybe your agreement with a participant could look like. Again, the purpose is to explicitly understand the course, including concepts and exercises. Talked about that. Uh, Although the work of the course is often therapeutic, mentor and mentee understand that mentoring sessions are educational, not professional coaching, counseling, or advising. And I think we covered that also. So this is what you could form your agreement to be like when, right? And we'll give you an idea of this also. We'll share this with you, of course, when we get to our mentoring conferences. Here's the third point: mentee, right? The participant who you're mentoring agrees to pay the mentor, right, X amount of money for X amount of time to be paid, right? It could be before or after the sessions, and you would choose the form of payment: PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. There's all these different ways to get paid nowadays. Right? Payments are due blank days before or after the service. This agreement can be terminated by either party for any reason. And the last point, this agreement can be changed with consent of both parties at any time for any reason. If you wanted to change the time of the date, how long each session is, that's all up to you guys.
So you can see this is, I mean, this is all voluntary, right? But it's clear, and that's what I love about it. It's going to provide something like this just creates fewer awkward moments in the future where you're going, well, I thought this is what we were doing, and you're like, well, I thought this is what we were doing. So this, I mean, if nothing else, right, this just puts a nice overlay of clarity on the relationship, and it's not restrictive, but it's clear, right? But look, if it doesn't work, then we're out, you know. And if we or if it doesn't work, let's change it. And so those are really speak to the basis of the values that we're trying to achieve and live out here. So yeah, so that's why it's kind of the way it is there.
So I think this kind of covers it. So maybe now I will stop sharing.
Q&A.
And we'll jump into anything that's hanging out there, questions, anything that was a little confusing. And by the way, just to be clear, there's nothing that, you know, we're not requiring to, for example, you don't have to take part in the Telegram group, things like that. It's just another resource. So the things that we're offering, right, you can take it or not. Just wanted to maybe get clear on that. All right, cool. So I don't know if that was too clear, everything that we did.
Could we go back with a little less detail this time? So any questions?
Yeah, questions.
Okay, see Ariel and Ruthie.
Okay. Can I go? It's okay?
Yeah, why don't you hop on, and then
Yeah.
Ruthie will be next. Okay.
Well, I have two questions. One is more logistic about the mentoring list. So I understand we haven't finished the CCO, so I can sign up now. And can I list myself later on, or can we list ourselves now? How does it go? This is the first question.
If you can register now in anticipation of completing the certificate of completion, so that when you do have the certificate of completion, then you list yourself on the
Right.
directory.
And so the tricky part about that is, when do we publish the directory, right? Like, in order for you to have enough time to get in the directory. And so I think that's why we chose the date we did. If you hit every week, if you were totally up to date, the earliest you could possibly hit 90% would be week 48, right? So that's sometime in July, right? Is that right? Or no? I thought it was
May,
no.
May.
May, rather. Sorry. Yeah. Um, and so, yeah, as soon as you hit that 90% mark, you could be in there starting then. And so the date, what is the date we're publishing it on?
It's also in May, and I believe it's
Right.
around that week also.
Right. So
So,
that
so
will
just
be
to
an
understand,
ongoing process,
yeah,
right? The
just to
publication.
understand, we can sign up now. Getting into the directory will be toward the end of May, and well, so far I followed the CCO. Why the no? Uh, so are you going to check it? I mean, I can list myself before you check it, I guess, right?
Well,
Because
you can list yourself once you've done the certificate of completion, because you can, it's kind of like practice groups. You can list a practice group whenever you wanted to on there. The earliest that you can list yourself on the directory would be May 23rd or something. I got to look up the day. I'll look it up. Like that's when we start verifying and looking at everybody's journals. And if you've done 90% of the work, then you can list yourself on the directory. Otherwise, you can just wait until you're done with all the work in the certificate of
Right.
completion to list yourself. Is the
Right.
idea.
You'll get an email saying that it's official.
Exactly.
You're done.
okay,
And who knows, it might even
Yeah.
have a certificate on it.
okay. So just another to now that we are speaking, that I will understand that I do it right. Part of it I do in English, and part of it I do in Hebrew. So you said, I think it's right. I don't remember exactly because you are not going to really check it, but just to check that everything is done. I mean,
Yeah.
so if
Yeah.
I do it all right,
Yeah. I mean, it
yeah.
needs to be in the ballpark, right? We need to be able to, so we would need to understand it, but that's easy with Google Translate, not a problem,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
right? I mean, it'll get close. I just want to make sure, you're not writing all work, no play makes Johnny a dull boy over and over and over again.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. Last question
Little
about
Shining reference there, by the way.
the program itself. I mean, this is like first experiment. Maybe we are all doing, or you are leading it, and like maybe before the practice groups, before I got into it, the first year I just did it by myself. Then I did the practice groups, and it was so amazingly much better. And so about the mentoring, I mean, if I was for the first time, or I don't know if I would take it. I mean, seriously, sincerely speaking, because it's like a course, and you are taking it, and I mean, I can understand the importance of the mentoring or counseling, but do you really probably, and you get your own ideas. Um, so how is it gonna? Do you think really people will sign up? This is
That's
a
why we
little
did
bit
it.
doubtful question.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And
why we did it. It's happening already. And so, just like we found out that everybody was using this to do practice groups several years ago, we're like, oh, well, let's help the community be the community, right? Whatever you want to do, let's see if we can't help that happen even more, right? So that's what this is. And look, I don't think I'm that big on mentoring personally. But I know there are plenty of folks that love mentoring and that's their thing and that's how they learn. I mean, I don't, I enjoy mentoring people, but that's not how I learn. I'm a little more of an autodidact or whatever you want to call it. But otherwise, but some people are like, and by the way, this is a cultural thing too. Some people really want to have somebody holding their hand, or maybe somebody needs support going through, and they're like, oh, I want to get past this point in the course, and I can't get through. Maybe I could just hire a mentor for a few weeks, get through this, and get back on track, which is really cool, right? Like that's the whole idea of sequencing the course and running everybody, kind of at the same time. That it gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of taking advantage of and supplying resources inside the community.
Okay, so I just follow up with the same question, but the first year of the OF compared to the second one is much more like the follow-up emails. When I preparing myself before the practice group, I look at your suggestions, and so it's helping a lot. And like for the follow-up emails for the mentoring program, how is it gonna be different than just the regular practices since it's one-on-one? So
Well,
how is it
I'm
gonna look exactly?
I'm imagining we're going to be looking at more. It's going to be different. It's probably going to be less content oriented and more kind of didactic oriented, right? Like, how can I help this person do this? And that's the whole idea. If we've already been through the certificate of completion, then we've kind of got the content down, and now we're working on that next thing, like how do I be a better mentor, right? How can I help this person I'm working with? And that's that's a pretty big deal. It's not something that I would like to have happen just all willy nilly. I love the fact that we're going to be traveling together as a community through this. I think it just makes a huge difference. In fact, that's why I think the course is so successful, because we're consistent year after year, and we're making it better. We're consistently making it better, but it's that same course year after year. And I don't know anybody who's finished it, even me, and I wrote it. So we're not. We don't feel like we're short on stuff to do inside the course. So it's just a
Okay,
matter
cool.
of how do we help people just, have a better experience with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm excited about it.
Cool, cool. That's two of us at least.
Ruthie?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple questions. Well, first of all, I have a comment about what Ariel just said. If it came to it, please, offering, you wouldn't have to have Google Translator. You could have Ruthie Translator. It's not a problem if anybody is Hebrew
All right.
speaking, or that I could always just give a quick review and let you know it's totally fine or whatever. That not a problem for you guys. I would do it for you. But okay, that's just a comment. My question is, are like I know people, different people, like in my life or in my community, whatever, that might be struggling in general, like struggling with life, and I'm just wanting to know, like, are there any restrictions? You did touch upon it. I heard you did touch upon it, but just for clarity purposes, are there any restrictions on mentoring people outside of the Compassion course? Or, and for clarity purposes, do you have a preference of me, like, recruiting those people and say, well, sign up for the Compassion course, and if you need me as a mentor, you could have me as a mentor? How do you, what's your preference, and how do you view it? Or are there any restrictions on just mentoring people outside of the Compassion course, just in terms of the agreements that we're making? Like, I just want clarity on the agreement.
Yeah.
Not that I'm doing it or that, but just,
No, yeah.
clarity. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
We've always been like, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter what you want to do, we will never tell you to not do something. If you want to be your own mentor out there without being in the program, if you want to have your own practice group without being in the program, we're like, hey, it's, go for it. What we are providing is different than that, though. It's kind of the more organized, uh, kind of the give and take of it all, um, to be part of this this community and this specific program inside the community, right? So you're getting a directory, you're getting resources, you're getting an education, all that stuff. If that doesn't work for you, if you're like, hey, you know what, I don't need any of that, I just want to be a mentor, go. There's uh, that does happen. That's again how we even thought to have the program.
I'm just saying, I personally, I mean, I love the community. I love the support. I actually look forward to the weekly, the monthlies, whatever. I look forward to all these meetings. I find it a tremendous support in my personal life. So
Hmm.
for sure, I would, be more than thrilled to mentor anyone who wants mentoring within the community. I just wanted like to be sure that if I potentially met somebody out, who wasn't in the course, is it allowed to, you know, I mean, you can do both. You could have in course, out of course. I just wanted to know, in terms of agreements, what if there was restrictions. But I'm hearing that like you're open minded to everything. But
Yeah,
in
there's
terms of
no
me,
right. We're not.
I'm part of the community. I'm joining. Like
Yeah,
I'm totally grateful,
yeah,
eternally grateful to be part of this project that you're doing. Thank you.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're not trying to restrict anything, right? We're just trying to create something, and then if there's stuff that happens outside that, awesome. You know, um, but
Thanks.
we're just trying to be like a little change agents here, and make something that we see happening kind of naturally. We want to help it happen even more.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey.
Anything else?
All right.
Oh, and I know I saw this in the chat, but in terms of the feedback form, that's there for participants to just have whenever they want to submit, feedback that, they maybe they're really celebrating something, or they just have some confusion, or they just want to share, some concern about something, so they have that available to them.
Yeah, there's this idea that there's no such thing as too much communication. Um, we just want to really add that, right? Why? Because it just gives us this amazing, connection to everybody who's in the program if they want it. And the thing that it's not like you're required to submit a feedback form for every mentoring class. No, you just have to make it available. We're not into like the arm twisting thing where, you're like, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I need to have a form from you. It's not like that. So, cool. All right. So maybe we did. Maybe we answered everybody's questions. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, and I think in terms of when the first mentoring session will take place, we'll probably do that before uh, the course begins. And I believe June 6th, we have the organizer facilitator first meeting. So I believe if I'm looking at the calendar correctly, it'll probably be Tuesday the 7th. And it's on the website. So let me just see if I can pull that up real quick here. All the dates, by the way, that we've talked about are somewhere on the website. There's just so many that trying to like hold them all in. 23, 6. All right. So mentoring would be, okay. So first mentoring meeting, May 23rd. There you go. And of course, if you are registered after that date, you will get access to the recording. And that's kind of like, and by the way, we did that because the week after Memorial Day and then the week after that is the first OF meeting. So it's May 23rd, the first mentoring meeting. And again, it's kind of like a prep meeting. We're going to review some of the stuff on the agreements and start talking about, initial meetings with your mentees and things like that. And by the way, I would not discount having a kind of like a maybe like a questions meeting with some people if you're open to kind of like doing a little meet and greet with somebody and they have questions of what it's like to work with a mentor. That is a great opportunity to just put yourself out there for like a 20-minute question, getting to know somebody session.
Yeah, and also, by the way, I mean, some folks, and I know that happened in the OF program. It's like, a lot of folks didn't feel ready to organize or facilitate a group, but they wanted to get ready, and I thought this was a great way to do it. And I'd say this is a great way to get ready to mentor. If you're not ready and you're looking for a bridge into it, this is it.
Yeah. Cool. I don't know. I think maybe. Oh wait, I see.
Oh,
Ruthie.
and Elizabeth. Ruthie, you there? We need a star. What is it? A star 6?
There you go.
Yeah, thanks. Last question, just in technical. The email that you'd like us to email all the work that we have done up to now on all the chapters and practices, which email would you like us to use in order to
Probably course coordinator.
hand in the work?
Course
The regular course coordinator, the regular email.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah, just put a recognizable subject line on there, like
Okay.
CC somewhere in there,
Yeah.
so we could search for it that way.
Yeah. And we'll be
Alrighty.
sending an email about that stuff too.
Okay.
Okay, alrighty, and thank you.
All right. Elizabeth.
You answered it in the chat, Antonio. Thank you.
All right. Cool.
For everybody else, I was just asking if I've sat in on the facilitator track for 2 years and I facilitated this year. I was just asking that there's no requirement that we facilitate next year. We can still be a mentor without the facilitating. And Antonio said yes. So that was my question and it was answered. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Going
Cool.
once, going twice.
Yeah, we're almost at time. So again, if you have anything that pops up along the way, send us an email.
Yeah.
Other than that, the registration form is ready for you if you want to jump into the mentoring program. And if we can help in any way, you know how to get a hold of us. So.
Yeah. I second that emotion. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. I think we did. I think I know from this end it feels like a nice, complete kind of conversation that we've had. So thank you for that. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your attention. And to be continued as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Very much.
All right. So yeah, let's just demute everybody here and we can all say our fond farewells.
All right, everyone.
And thank you, Antonio, for being like the best co-pilot like I could ever ask for.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh,
All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talk soon.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.